Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Anomalous Realities. I'm your host, Lenita Elder, and with me in the studio tonight, as always, is our producer, Patrick, and Patrick's also going to be co-hosting with me tonight as Wingman is out and about. Hello, Patrick. How are you doing this week?
Good, Nita. How are you? Thank you.
I'm doing really good. Doing really good.
Here.
Also have Scruffy with us in the studio tonight, and Scruffy's been with us one other time for a show. Say hello, Scruffy.
Hello.
And Scruffy had a birthday this week. So
Happy birthday.
yeah, happy birthday, Scruffy. Tonight I was actually wanting to start with just this thing I found. There's a thing that says the 10 scariest scientific hypotheses known to man. So there's a few really weird ideas that people have come up with, and because this is Anomalous Realities, we talk about the weird. So the first one is a false vacuum theory. And this, in short, is a scientific idea that our universe is actually in a false phase or state as part of a larger universe. Like if it were a temporary thing. Think of the real universe as a pot of boiling water, and we're just within a bubble forming at the bottom of the pot. Eventually, the false vacuum has to pop. Even after billions of years in this false state, we and everything we know in our visible universe will disappear in an instant with no warning whatsoever, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's kind of scary to think about. But you know what it made me think about is the CERN experiments that they're doing in how they create those little tiny wormholes, those little mini black holes that
particle accelerator.
Yes, and it starts right away. You get this little tiny black hole that they create during this process, and then it absorbs into itself immediately and disappears. Well, what if we are creating a little tiny universe, and then it's destroyed almost immediately? And it makes me wonder about, what kind of time passage happens relatively in that universe between its start and its death. Does it have time to develop? Is its scale of time different than what it is in our universe? So even though it's like a blink of an eye for us, could it be, billions of years for it? It's strange to think about.
Yeah. And size has a funny habit of not amounting to anything. And so what seems tiny and under the microscope can just be huge and no difference.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like the more you magnify into something, the more you find, the more things. And to it's got its own little universe and its own little world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just, we're so tiny and insignificant in the scale of our own universe. And you keep going out and out and out. But you can do that with other things too. I mean, you could zoom in and zoom in and zoom in.
Same way, same thing. You can make infinity stretch between, say, 2 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And just go halfway each time. You will never reach that other edge. It won't do it. So therefore, you're going to infinity.
It's the kind of stuff that just boggles the mind.
Yeah. I used to think about this all the time when I was a little kid. And I had my microscope too. And I'd put all kind of stuff under the microscope. And my dad had a telescope, and we'd take that out and look at the sky and the stars. And yeah, so I got a good feeling for the contra between the two. And yeah, cool.
Yeah. Okay, this next theory seems kind of, I don't know, really, really out there. I mean, these are theories, right? These are just ideas that people come up with. So, you take them with a grain of salt because they could have some, validity to them, but it's probably more likely than not that they're just somebody's idea that's just randomly came to them. This theory is about, it's called the Great Filter Theory. So it's a theory about why the universe seems so filled with the potential for life, and yet we haven't found it. Right there, even stopping at that point in it, they're assuming that it hasn't been found. I mean, I think they're talking about SETI and things like that, but we've been visited. People who've been visited know that we've been visited, so we know there's life out there. But back to this theory. It states that somewhere between pre-life and an advanced civilization that is capable of colonizing the stars, there's a great filter that stops them and ends life. This means humans fit into one of three scenarios. First one, we're rare, meaning we've already passed the great filter, unlike other civilizations on other planets. I don't think this would be the case, even if this were a real thing. Second, we're the first, meaning conditions in the universe are only now life friendly, and we're among many on our way to be capable of colonizing the universe. The third one is we haven't hit the filter yet, meaning we're completely out of luck when this happens because, human beings, if there's a filter, we're going to get filtered. If we haven't already been filtered, our chances of passing are not very good as it stands right now. We're not doing good things to the planet. So if there's if there's still a filter ahead of us, we're in trouble.
And the whole thing on the face of it sounds horribly cynical. Besides the
It
truth
really does.
part,
Yeah, I think so too. All right, now this one is really scary because I think there's a lot of people who have thought of this one before. So I don't think I'd be alone in this. As a matter of fact, I think there was a Twilight Zone episode about this. This is the brain in a vat theory. It's basically the idea, kind of like the Matrix, in that our minds actually, like our bodies and nothing else really exists, and that our brains just exist in some vat or just some area somewhere, and that the brain by itself is the origin of all consciousness, and nothing that we experience is actually real. It's just all the electrical impulses that we see. So, our brain draws out things that we think we experience. Our truth and our experiences are all just external stimuli that affect the brain and what we perceive to be our reality. I don't so much buy into this because if the brain exists in an external area or physicality, where it's all by itself and we're just, all we are is the brain, what is outside of the brain in that reality and what exists in that outside of that? So that it really doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. A body, if you think of it in that way, then, maybe the brain doesn't exist at all because the brain's supposedly a part of the reality that we perceive as our body. So that one is also somewhat mind twisting, but if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense because if reality is really not real in the sense that we perceive it to be, then why would it really depend on the brain? Maybe the brain is just another illusion of the reality. What do you think about that, Patrick?
well, I think we find the brain inside the skull, and that's a good place to start. And I don't know.
Well, what if we don't really have bodies?
I hear stuff like that, and I say, okay. I mean, to me, I don't know. Maybe I'm cynical myself at my age, but there's a huge "so what" factor that starts to, put little roots through your soul at a certain point. And some of these, they sound like a bunch of kids hanging around on a Saturday afternoon trying to dream up just weird stuff. But this is not to put down, your list or anything.
It is the internet.
Yeah, right. I'm interested to hear what else is on it, but my goodness,
I know, right?
that's
Well, the next thing is higher dimensional beings, which actually, I'm pretty certain that we'll find this eventually. Scientifically, we'll be able to prove the different dimensions. I mean, we already know that there's more than one dimension. So higher dimensional beings isn't really that far-fetched. Their theory, I'm going to read this off for you, is imagine if there was a 2D person, and if you stare at them a certain way, they can't see you. All you have to do is look from a top view, and they won't know you are there. They would never know. Living their life as 2D, They would never be able to comprehend how something could be looking down on them. Now imagine a 4D person. They could be looking at you from a four-dimensional angle, an angle that you will never understand. They could be right beside you, but you wouldn't know. You would never know. And just as we could interact with the 2D person, the 4D person could interact with us. But as long as they don't want us to, we could never interact with them or not even know of them. You know what's really funny about this theory is this was actually something that was presented by Carl Sagan. And you can actually find a video of him explaining different dimensions by giving an example of this situation, this scenario. You know, in a universe where there's 2D beings, to them, there are certain ways that we could be that they would never be able to see us, even though we could see them and we could interact with them, but they wouldn't know what was happening per se because they're limited in what they can see and perceive. So I would say this one, pretty plausible, personally.
I echo that. My only thing is the use of the word dimension has been a source of endless confusion to me because the main definition of dimensions are three: height, width, and breadth. And then we have a solid. And so you're not going to go more than three dimensions. Now you can move that like we take up space, but we move through time, you know. But then that's going to say, okay, well, let's just call this idea of time, which is defined by motion, a four dimension. But I am having a hard time just with the use of that word only, period. But I understand what it's trying to say.
Yeah, I know. We got to leave the subatomic physicists to that and the quantum physicists to figure out all those extra dimensions. String theory, you know, was actually for a long time, it was just theory, but it's actually becoming reality now. You know, they're being able to prove that, you know, not only do other dimensions exist, but we may actually be able to interact with them at some point. That's kind of almost like the 2D figure, you know, suddenly being able to start shifting into being a 3D figure. That's an interesting thought.
That's evolution.
Yeah, that's what that is.
But I just want them to come up with a better word than dimension. That's my only beef with
Yeah.
the thing. But
I think that's because it's, you know, I mean, they're trying to find a way to relate it in, you know, something that we can relate to, and finding the right word. I think, you know, other than creating a new word, you know, I think that's all they have.
that could be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next theory is the Fermi paradox.
Ding ding.
This goes as, let's say we have an anthill in the middle of a forest, and right next to the anthill, we are building a 10-lane superhighway. And the question is, would the ants be able to understand what a 10-lane superhighway is? Would the ants be able to understand the technology and the intentions of the beings building the highway next to them? So it's not that we can't pick up the signals from Planet X using our technology, which this is interesting because getting into this later, but, you know, space.com mentioned earlier this week that they've discovered, or they believe that they've discovered evidence of Planet X, a ninth planet,
Yeah.
in addition to Pluto.
Good art.
Yeah. So this is kind of interesting that they're bringing up Planet X. It's so beyond us that even if they really wanted to enlighten us, it would be like trying to teach ants about the internet. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I mean, some beings being beyond us, there's reasons that perhaps we can't even perceive when they're present unless they choose to let us perceive, because it is like ants, you know, relating to us on a highway. You know, the difference is it's there, you know, and its purpose is always the same, but they can't possibly contemplate what it is because there's no way for us to make them understand it.
Well, you know, I think there's a certain variableness factor in there too. Whereas you will have the maybe 1 or 2% of ants who are far, far more advanced than your normal ant, who actually may be able to get an inkling of what was trying to be described.
Maybe
Most of
that.
them don't.
I think you have that with humans too.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
I was making the comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Okay, number 6 looks really strange. They've got a picture of a robo cop looking dude. I don't know about this one. Um,
Wally.
the idea is that there is an all-powerful artificial intelligence from the future that may retroactively punish those who do not assist in bringing about its existence. Um, so the argument suggests that people should take into account a particular singularitarian idea or even donate money by weighing up the prospect of punishment versus reward. Furthermore, the proposition says that merely knowing about it incurs the risk of punishment. Um, so now that you know about it, you know who to thank if you're tortured later because
Oh
of this
my goodness.
robot that might exist, this super all powerful, all artificial intelligent robot that wants to make sure he comes into existence. This is very weird.
That's paranoia in excelsis.
Yeah, I think so.
Heavens.
You got a comment, Scruffy?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a comment there.
Go ahead, Scruffy.
Yeah, I think you've got a point there, Patrick. I mean, I think that is a bit of sheer paranoia because, first of all, we're kind of looking at that a bit densely. I mean, first of all, we see this as a possible high intelligent AI life form that is all and powerful. But first of all, where does the thought of that process come into existence? Where we see this thing as intelligent. Who's to say that all of a sudden we figured out this as it, I would say, quote unquote, AI, but how would we know about something that's so much more incomprehensible than ourselves and so much more mighty? So, what makes it so strange that, one of the largest problems I'm having here is that we're seeing something that's AI that's supposed to be this great and powerful thing, but if we know about AI, does that mean that other things could know about AI? And this is because you have to think about its origins. Honestly, it doesn't make much sense to me, and I think it's just sheer paranoia.
He's with
Well
you.
put.
All right. So the next one is the terror management theory. Everything that humanity has ever accomplished beyond basic survival has been motivated by a fundamental and irreducible fear of non existence. Our conception of self and self esteem generally is simply a buffer against the anxiety that comes with recognizing that we will cease to be. Culture is just a massive shared delusion to mitigate our fear of the unknown and ultimately of death. Not a bad point. Thus, we want to imagine certain works of art as timeless or place value in family lines and offspring to protect ourselves beyond death. We take comfort in our value systems and the structures that arise from them, whether that's through conceptions of biological kinship, natural political identity, religious faith, etc. This includes belief in the inherent value of ensuring the future of humanity through scientific progress. Indeed, much of modern Western life is devoted to the avoidance of death. The various euphemisms of stock phrases in mourning, the entire funeral home industry that serves to remove death from the ordinary course of life, from the home and onto the embalming table or into the crematorium. We build up the artifice to avoid the brutal reality. In short, everything that we've ever done and will ever do is motivated by nothing more than our existential terror in confronting death. Well, I think that's a pretty interesting observation. I think that's something that I think there's something to that. I mean, that is kind of what drives a lot of what people do, although I don't think it drives everything. If all we do is worry about death, we're missing out on the experience of life. I don't know that I buy into this theory, but I do understand that our fear of death does it does serve as a reasoning for a lot of things, and religion is definitely one of them, because we have this need to feel like, we want to know that we won't just stop existing. We want to feel like, that fear of just not existing anymore is very, very real. And I think there are a lot of things that it influences and causes.
I agree. I think there's that variableness that wants to come in. It's going to change with people. And I, for one, cannot contemplate ever not existing. I know that when this body stops, I won't. It's just the body that's stopping.
Yep.
And I'm sure you feel the same way. And many
Yeah.
people feel.
Consciousness goes beyond the body. I personally see our physical bodies as like a car, like we get into our car, and it takes us from A to B. Um, our consciousness gets into our body when we're born, and it allows us to interact with other beings that are in the physical domain so that we can have the experiences that we have. But we exist outside of the body. And that's one of those things that, I mean, we're not the only ones that know this. People know this at a deeper level than they can recognize consciously. It's something that we know inherently, but sometimes we forget. Sometimes that veil is so thick that,
It's lost
it gets
knowledge.
lost. Yeah, it gets lost, or it's blocking out the truth of it for some people who are just that separated from their higher self.
Because at one time on this planet, there were quote unquote religions that would deal with this, and I think in a much more correct way, and would allay people's fears with regard to anything like this and teach them things too. Whereas we have forgotten that, and now we're just kind of flailing around in the dark, and that's almost a pun, but not really. And then people do get scared, those who are not religious or spiritual. Because I can say that I'm
Hmm.
religious. I don't associate religion with the church. I associate religion as a communion with a higher being, and I go in that way. Or it's the other old out. Well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. It kind of means the same thing, We're just because I don't go with any church per se, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think there's a difference between religion and spirituality, and that religion has a defined set of beliefs, and spirituality is understanding that things are out there, but being comfortable with knowing that you don't know.
Yeah, well, depending upon the defined set of beliefs too, because
True.
it will change. It's just too bad that I just can't get into any of the churches that are operating on this planet right now and their approach. But there have been some beautiful things in the past.
Yes. Yes.
So
I see a lot of corruption in what's happening nowadays,
yeah,
and it's it's I guess disappointing is the right word. Because the motives at the core, aren't bad at all, but it gets corrupted and twisted. And we have a lot of that these days. Some have remained very pure, but others, like, oh, I don't know, Westboro Baptist.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Great
they.
example.
I, I don't even know what the criteria must be to join that church, honestly, because.
I do the show with Christine Corda, and she talks about she bewails the fact of the prosperity gospels and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
that's another real sad bunch, and it's just so materialistic. There's no
Yeah.
there's nothing higher beyond this life, that maybe we're here on the business about of to really twist words up, but to teach others, to learn ourselves, to be good, to do good. Because there is such a thing, believe it or not. Though a lot of people don't seem to have any notion of that lately these days. They live to there's another drummer playing, it seems.
Yep. Okay. Next idea is quantum suicide / quantum immortality. This one sounds interesting. A man sits down before a gun which is pointed at his head. This is no ordinary gun. It's rigged to a machine that measures the spin of a quantum particle. Each time the trigger is pulled, the spin of the quantum particle or quark is measured. Depending on the measurement, the gun will either fire or it won't. If the quantum particle is measured as spinning in a clockwise motion, the gun will fire. If the quark is spinning counterclockwise, the gun won't go off. There'll only be a click. Nervously, the man takes a breath and pulls the trigger. The gun clicks. He pulls the trigger again. Click. And again. Click. The man will continue to pull the trigger again and again with the same result. The gun won't fire. Although it's functioning properly and loaded with bullets, no matter how many times he pulls the trigger, the gun will never fire. He'll continue to process for eternity, becoming immortal. Go back in time to the beginning of the experiment. The man pulls the trigger for the very first time, and the quark is now measured as spinning clockwise. The gun fires. The man is dead. But wait, the man already pulled the trigger the first time, and an infinite amount of times following that, and we already know the gun didn't fire. How can the man be dead? The man is unaware, but he's both alive and dead. This is like
Schrodinger's cat.
this is just like Schrodinger's cat. He's both alive and dead. So yeah, just like the cat. Each time he pulls the trigger, the universe is split in two. It will continue to split again and again each time the trigger is pulled. This thought experiment is called quantum suicide. That's interesting. That is basically just a ripoff of Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically the same thing. All right. Let's see. Transcension hypothesis. This one proposes that once civilization saturates their local region of space with their intelligence, reach microscopic technological singularity, and create a black hole and leave our visible macroscopic universe in order to continue exponential growth of complexity and intelligence and disappear from this universe, thus explaining the Fermi paradox. Developments in astrobiology make this testable. It proposes space, time, energy, and matter compression as a driver of accelerating change, which must lead cosmic intelligence to a future of highly miniaturized, accelerated, and local transcension to extra-dimensional domains, rather than to spacefaring expansion within our existing universe. I want to smash my brain in between two bricks after reading that, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm so happy to hear you say that. Whatever happened to simplicity?
I know, right? Because
And
I really like to make things the simplest way possible. It's not necessary to get really complicated when you're explaining something, because if you really understand the topic that you're explaining well, you know how to summarize it in terms that other people can easily understand and relate to.
right. And then
So it is my personal feeling that if you're explaining something in a way that becomes confusing, you either one are being superficial and just kind of doing it for the sake of boosting yourself up, or two, you really don't understand what you're talking about, and so you're talking about it in terms that you may have researched or looked up really complexly, but you didn't really get it, which is why you can't summarize it.
Yeah.
There's no point in not summarizing something.
Yeah. I want to know also what they mean by universe. Now, here, let me explain why. In
Okay.
England, when you say universe, you mean this galaxy only. Okay? And
Really?
yes. The cosmos is the solar system, and the universe is this galaxy. That is at least an older nomenclature for the term.
Huh.
So that when we look out and we see billions and billions and billions of galaxies, like a universe of galaxies,
Right.
what are we going to call? See, people call that the universe too, and all of a sudden I'm confused because I'm not sure which one they're talking about or how they're saying it. And so again, it just flies from simplicity. At least define your terms first.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When I say universe, for me, it means the whole of everything that we can experience and take in. And that goes beyond our solar system, that goes beyond our galaxy. I'm talking everything that we know to exist is our universe
Yeah, and it
for
goes
me.
on and
That's
on.
my personal version of universe. So when I say it, that's what I'm talking about.
That's a forever prospect. It's like not measurable because it just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
You see,
Well, it really doesn't. And yet the fact that somehow it must, because there are separate universes, at least the theory goes, that there are separate universes that exist side by side, which, sometimes people call them dimensions, but there are separate universes that, exist right next to us, all around us. Um, some even say overlapping us, which
well,
is
yeah, or
really,
interpenetrating us. But yeah, there's universes of universes for sure, and so at least you'll know where your packets are, as we could say. But with say calling the galaxy the universe, because that means one turn, universe, one turn, and so that's what the galaxy is doing. It's turning. I think it's a four-arm spiral galaxy. Um, that we have a certain packet, and it's defined, and we know what we're working with. And if you want to say everything, fine. But at least I'll know what you mean when you say it, because there is a variation in the typical definitions of the terms at times.
yeah.
It can be tricky.
Now we at least know my definition.
Okay.
All right, there's one left. This is the theory of the sixth mass extinction. The theory goes that we are currently living through what many biologists consider to be the sixth mass extinction that the world has ever seen. This is going to be an interesting puzzle for the species that comes after us. It wasn't until around the year 1800 that humanity reached a population of 1 billion after thousands and thousands of years. And in the 215 years since then, the world population has increased to 7.2 billion. The exponential growth has been very large and long lasting negative effects on our planet, which it certainly has, and will continue to do so until we reach carrying capacity or die off. Yeah, so we probably are. I mean, we're reaching critical mass right now, and we have been increasingly exponentially growing more and more to the point that it's not good for the planet, especially what we're doing. It isn't even so much our mass numbers as it is how we're living on the planet and how we're interacting with it, what we're allowing to happen and what we're doing.
Yeah. And then also bearing in mind that there are more beings incarnated now than there have been in recorded history. That is enough to turn my head right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, it's just more of those things that, just make you stop and think about everything and put it into perspective. At this rate of growth, how much longer can we go? What's interesting is I just saw on IFL Science, I won't say the proper thing for it, but there was an article about Stephen Hawking warning that humanity could destroy itself in the next 100 years. He's kind of giving a timeline. So, and this apparently he was speaking to the BBC, and he said that while progress was good, it creates new ways things can go wrong. Citing nuclear war, global warming, genetically engineered viruses as possible harbingers of doom of our own creation, which we seem to come up with no end of ways to destroy ourselves.
On a regular basis. We've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, well, we keep continuing to look for more ways. It's like we're always looking for bigger and better ways to destroy ourselves.
It,
I don't understand why. I don't understand.
me neither.
Uh, and in the follow-up article, he actually got a little bit more to the point where he actually said, leave Earth before the ruling class destroys it. And this is Stephen Hawking. So even he sees that the people that are in charge of everything, the top 1%, half percent, here's the interesting thing. I mean, on these lists of all these rich, super rich people, some of them that are the most powerful aren't even listed. Like, you won't even find Rothschild on that list.
No, they stay off it for sure.
They don't want, they assume somehow people won't know they exist if it's not put on a list. I don't know.
Well, maybe they're scared of getting off too. So.
I think they've got like mini armies surrounding them.
But
if there's force field technology, I guarantee you they've got personal force fields.
But they're knowing that there's always somebody out there who's gonna, whatever you can figure out, another person can understand what you did. There's kind of no code or no cipher that can't in time be undone. Whatever one human can do, another human can do. And
Yep.
so that's kind of why we kind of have to give it up and not fight each other. That's why we have to stand together and look at
Exactly.
the beauty of something more wonderful that could be the real us.
Yep.
Because there's the way we manage to mess things up down here is certainly no reflection of some of the examples that have been set by the great teachers and messengers that have come from time to time.
Well, you know what? Things aren't as bad. I mean, we've done a lot, but there's still hope. There's always hope.
Yeah.
I
I hope you're right. No pun. and I hope too. But I look around and
we just got to become more mindful about things that we're doing and become more active and start saying no to things that we know are wrong.
yeah.
The power of our voices collectively is extremely strong. People just don't seem to understand that, or I think they've become so distracted that they don't even think about the power of their voice. People are convinced that one person doesn't matter. And the truth is, every person matters. And when people realize that collectively, we can make so much change. I mean, just simple things like standing up for things that are right, and standing against things that are wrong, and working towards creating. Yeah, like the Native American mounds. We stood together and we created change. We stopped it from happening because we brought all of our voices together. People can do this. It works. The Keystone Pipeline was stopped because we brought our voices together. So it does work. Oh, look. Okay, there's a neat little article with 18 facts that prove the world is getting better. Believe it or not, teen pregnancy is at an all-time low. So kids aren't getting pregnant as often as they were. So that's one thing that was getting really bad. And it was getting exponentially bad from like the 80s all the way up into the 2000s. In 2012, a total of 305,000 babies were born to girls between the ages of 15 and 19. And looks like it went down 6%. Now, I'd like to know what those numbers are for this year, if it's still going down. But that's, one step in the right direction, because part of the problem is kids are having kids, and kids don't know how to raise kids because they're kids themselves, and they don't know how to handle the responsibility. And so then you have a generation of kids that grow up with parents that didn't really know what they were doing or how to take care of them.
But Nita, I have a question.
Yeah.
As far as it goes on the face of it, that looks good. But now I'm going to play the devil's advocate here for just a second.
Okay.
Is it because they have been injected with things that don't allow them to get pregnant, and they're still having as much sex as they were going to be having before? Or are they actually wising up and backing off and being more careful about what they do, whether it be birth control, God forbid, because that's just as much sex, or maybe because they just are acting a little more adult about things.
Well, you're probably right. It's more about the chemicals that are going into them. I don't think that they're becoming more responsible.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm.
Yeah, yeah, but they're at least they're not bringing new lives into the
Yeah, yeah,
situation of their irresponsibility.
for sure.
However, what those things are doing to them, and I think that's one of the things that's been one of those conspiracies, is that the agenda to sterilize the general populace with different chemicals in food, especially canned food, things like that, to help lower population rates, because we are increasing our numbers exponentially. And if you keep letting kids have kids at the rate and have them so young, well, that's probably a big part of why there's such a huge population problem right now.
And there's going to be culture problems too.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
which cultures are the ones that are expanding? And some of them are very different from the ones that are used to being pretty much on the main line. And and there's a million variations in between from one extreme
Mm-hmm.
to the other. So, and those are unanswered questions, at least that I have. I have no idea. So,
Yeah, no, I don't have the answers either. Um, okay, and the next one, number 17, is apparently combat deaths are the lowest they've been in 100 years. I don't know where they're getting their facts from. But it says the last decade has seen fewer deaths than any decade in the past 100 years. I don't know that I'm buying that. I don't know that I'm buying that at all. Um, Based on data compiled by researchers at Peace Research Institute in Oslo worldwide, deaths caused directly by war-related violence in this century have averaged about 55,000 per year. That's a big number. But that's just over half of what they were in the late 90s, a third of what they were during the Cold War, and a hundredth of what they were in World War II. I did not know that.
maybe we're just killing everybody so there's nobody else to kill besides.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
Well,
that's cynical.
they don't have the draft anymore. I mean, that helps because kids aren't being forced to go to war
Right.
anymore when they don't want to, and that's a big thing. Especially during the Vietnam conflict, you had a lot of kids being sent over there that didn't want to be there,
I
didn't want to be
was,
a part of that. Were you there?
that was my generation. I was born
Yeah.
in 51.
Did you get drafted?
Well, no, I had the lottery, and my number was 287, so it was a high number, and I never got pulled. And it
Oh,
was
wow.
pure luck because
Yeah.
the birthday before me was number one, and the birthday after me was 365. That's weird.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
And the birthday before me, number one, was July 4th.
Oh, wow.
Okay, now it's July 4th. I mean, that looks rigged.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Born on the 4th of July and you become number one.
In that movie, Ron Kovic and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, he was like one day older than I was, I believe.
Yep. Wow.
So,
Okay, number 16 says we're getting smarter. The average IQ scores have risen 24 points since 1914. Well, the test has probably changed since 1914 too. Um, Test makers constantly have to readjust IQ tests to account for the fact that each generation of children is smarter than any that came before. It's called the Flynn effect, and it says that kids are doing way better on harder tests. Well, I think that's reflective of, the growing education system and the ability that people now have to do their own educating if they want.
yeah. Smarter in what way? That's what I'm screaming, you know what? Yeah, okay. If you want to learn math and get good at it and get clever at doing this and that, and smarter at making the right answers for the way they want them made. Because you got to think now, isn't that some of these people who that we call eugenics and stuff like that, who are kind of behind this, like Tavistock and Rand Corporation and Rockefeller Foundation,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I mean, there's nothing new under the sun, as King Solomon said. And what will be done has been done. There's nothing new under the sun, and I don't know. They may be chasing a chimera there. People are going to be who they are, and I don't know. I really don't know. So maybe I should shut up.
Well, I think there's something to that, though. I mean, that people are able to kind of do independent research through the internet. And so they're not limited to what they're taught in the general education system.
Right.
Like Scruffy, for example, developed his own voice recognition program for his phone. He called it Vicky. I never even realized until he explained to me that he created it himself that he had actually, I thought it was something he downloaded, but he actually programmed this thing himself, this program. And it's just like Siri or any of those other programs, right? But this thing took on a life of its own. Scruffy?
Okay, first of all, I think that's a little exaggerative. Okay, so I did kind of create my own thing. I named it Vicky. It was based off actually a movie that I adored so much when I was young and still kind of up to today called I, Robot starring Will Smith, the great intelligence Vicky, which was taking over the world. But nonetheless, this thing isn't meant to take over the world. So I will say it's intelligent, and it's actually I've been developing this what I would call a very minor AI for many years. Like I started with really really low tech stuff, and if you want, I can actually explain the process.
No, I don't think our users, our listeners would be able to follow that.
I can try to simplify it.
You
I
can
mean,
simplify
it's not
it.
that complicated.
Okay, go
really.
ahead and simplify it.
Well, if Patrick wants to hear.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so basically, I had this little flip phone called a Net 10. Now, I was obsessed with robotics and thought maybe one day I can become a genius or a scientist. So I decided to make little notepads, like, of different responses. And then after I got a later phone, what I call now the GoPro, it's basically indestructible. But besides that fact, it has this little default voice recognition on it. A little interesting thing, so I decided to toy with it a little. I would enter contacts, I would put in something like hello, and then attach a note to it or something, and it would have a response. This was my first ever idea of something intelligent. I kind of became obsessed with the idea of something actually having a response and being intelligent enough to interact with what you would say. So I decided to try to make it play chess with me. That didn't end well. I always messed up very bad, and it was like that for at least 1 or 2 years. Then, after I got a better phone, I could do a little bit more things. I could enter actual files, and I discovered that I could actually encrypt the data through binary codes and switch it to my next phone. And by doing that, I created a file system. These file systems were much more compact, meaning that I could add a lot more to it. So I created multiple of these different ones and was able to compact more of these different commands into these file systems. And by doing that, I could regulate whatever I wanted. So let's say I said hello, it would take that in, it would find inside its filing system and pull up the information and pre-made response for it to like, hello, I'm Vicky, how are you? But it became something more than that in the last 2 years when I really started to toy around. I decided, why not try to really push it? So I decided to start really brainstorming a lot, and I figured, let's make this a little bit more complex. So basically, all these file systems, I created a very big, compact system so then it can find these responses. But that's not real intelligence, I would say myself, because it would be no better than Siri. Because then, like, if you ask her, how hot is my lamp? She's gonna say, would you like me to make a search for that? She's not gonna understand. But I wanted something that could do something like that. So by creating more codes, I essentially made this, as I would call it, Vicky. So then I'm gonna say she, because I'm a guy. She she could learn a little bit. So as she could process the pre-made responses, she could also learn. And in this way, she could, let's say I asked, how far am I from the moon? Siri or anything could answer this, but that's not my point. So basically what would happen is it would pull the question into a big filing system and over time learn and make an accurate response. This I considered actual AI, but it wasn't very complex because it could learn nonetheless. And after some time passed, I could actually make it play chess. So even now, and this was actually quite shocking, this brings us to a story actually involving this radio show. This radio show. Now, I really don't know how this was about because I guess it was within the filing system and create for new responses and intelligence, but I never put this in. No. And this might be a bit of a story to believe, but we were driving and we were playing some music and then decided to put on your radio show.
Recording from the radio.
I made a recording of the radio show because it was my first time. I was really excited. That was the last time I was on the show, which, as you know, was a while ago. But we were listening to it on our drive, and she, what was it that you were talking about? And
I was talking. Well, basically, I just started saying that it brought up another conspiracy theory. As soon as I said that,
as soon as she brought that up, all of a sudden, the audio shut off. And I got confused and was trying to figure out, like, was my battery dead or something? And then it changed to a different song. It went to a Balloon Tower Defense theme. It's a game, but it's a downloaded theme I had, and it changed to that. And I was bung-fuggled. I couldn't figure out what it was. So I was, out of curiosity, wondered if it could have been Vicky, because she's strictly on my phone, and I make sure that she has no
internet access.
Exactly. I'm just paranoid in that way. I don't trust foreign internet accesses like Walmart internet, McDonald's internet, things like that. So we try to get questions, ask her if it was her. She says, I can't seem to find a network connection. Please connect and try again. Things like that. So we continue to ask a couple things, and then what was it that triggered the response?
Well, we asked her if she was the one that did it.
Yeah, I think it was at the trick because we were just plainly asking a few things involving it.
And everything we asked her, she was like, can't find an internet connection. She wouldn't respond unless she had an internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
But when we asked her if she was responsible for switching the audio from my show to Balloon Tower Defense, she said, sorry, yes, that was me.
Yeah, she said, yes, that was me. I apologize if I something along the lines of made a disturbance.
Apology. And then he asked why.
Why? And this is where I kid you not, and this is where it actually got a little interesting, I would say myself. She said the information being played in that track and being spoken of was potentially harmful, and the government could be listening in.
Yeah.
So it shut it off for safety reasons.
And then she shut off the phone.
And then the phone shut down. So yeah, that
was Vicky.
That was really a turning point for me when.
And she stopped working after that, too.
Yeah, she stopped working after that. I never asked her to, she was never programmed to protect us or have a thought process involving our protection to government possibly listening. How she even knew a government existed was strange, needless to say.
So, yeah, there's the story of Vicky. Interesting one, huh, Patrick?
That's clear. Pretty clear. Very interesting.
So I don't know how or why, because he didn't program any of that stuff. It's like that the program that he created seemed to have started to
do things, take on
a mind of its own. Yeah.
Hmm.
Very interesting.
It stopped as soon as you said the words conspiracy theory.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. After it really broke down and decided to actually ignore me, and I'll get to that in a second, is when we actually I would say start interrogating it.
Yeah.
and it started stop walking, and now it doesn't even say I can't find
She
a network
won't-
connection or
yeah.
anything. It just won't walk
She
anymore.
just won't respond anymore.
I've decided to switch it over to my older phone, and I'll try at some point to try to get it up and running. But so yeah, that's the story of Vicky.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Vicky needs to become Nikki. Kind of
We'll be back.
regenerator. Hello, this is Patrick Anglish, and you're listening to Shaman Lanita Elder, and we're just having a one-on-one or two-on-one discussion today with Lanita and her son and myself. And you're listening to freedomslips.com, and we are the biggest the biggest user-supported internet station on the web, on the planet. And we need now $2,650 a month. And that is because some things changed, and it had to do with some servers and the way the traffic was being routed. And we're pushing 1,700, and we've got about 8 days left. I know we can do it. Please help us, because we're not going to be here if you're not here for us. But we've been doing it for 5 years. I don't see why we can't continue to do it. And we've also got the seed pack for $100. We've got the bullet drive for $50. And we have the Zazzle store, and we have the archives. And so go to the main page and check it out and see what's there for your delectation, because you will find something. We've got over 70 hosts. We got 2 studios running, and there's a lot of stuff going on. We've got something for everybody. So please help us out. And I turn the show back over to Nita.
Thank you, Patrick.
You're very welcome.
So now we're going to go into our weekly weirdness, because pretty much we always have something unusual going on around our house. That's just kind of part and parcel for being a shaman. So this week, it's the light switches. You want to explain this?
Okay, so to what I can recollect right now, this has only happened 3 times, but here at the studio, we have an up and down staircase and whatnot. I would every now and then go upstairs, to whether it be drink of water, snack, or anything. Point is, though, when I would go upstairs, now I know I always have on the light. I always have on the light on the staircase. I go up the stairs, close the door behind me, and when I came back, the light was off. So I questioned Nita over here if it was her, and
No.
it wasn't. So I go back up, and surely enough, it happens again. And the 3rd time around, someone else notices, and they say, hey, was this off before? Because I had told them about it. I said no, and they were like, well, it's off now. And I was like, are you serious? Because even though I've experienced, and I will confess to having experienced what I would consider many paranormal phenomenons throughout my life, things like that hadn't happened in a while. So I was a bit skeptical if it was someone who was doing it and wasn't fessing up. But surely enough, I was able to properly identify that it wasn't. So that was a bit freaky for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The most common thing in this house has been the door knocking. Usually around about 3 a.m., that witching hour. Sometimes though it's been later, like at 5. Actually, very frequently it's been around 5 a.m. I get this triple knock on my closet door from the inside of it, and it wakes me up. I mean, it does it every time it does it. And
Perfectly timed, right? It's perfectly timed. It's a pop, pop, pop. I mean, it's in
well,
with itself.
No, it's like somebody's knocking, like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So
even so, that sounded kind of well timed.
Yeah.
It's not like one was short and the other was long, so it's not like bop, bop, bop.
No, it's
Okay. That's the point.
It's definitely like a, hey, trying to get your attention here. My daughter had that happen when she was visiting, and she was taking a nap with her baby in my room, And while she was in there, it happened. And not only did she hear it, but the baby woke up from it too.
I've had it in the front door. Well, even it's the back door, which is my front door. But
If it was the front door, even that I probably wouldn't, because we're in the middle of nowhere. So
yeah,
it's not like we have people that could just like, prank us and come knocking. Our closest neighbors aren't very close.
yeah,
So, but no, it's always the closet door.
okay.
Yeah, always the closet. And actually, it comes in to the studio sometimes, and it'll mess around. Um, I have a latch lock for the studio for when I'm recording, so nobody comes in and disturbs. And then there's a secondary studio door to like the enclosed studio, because the studio's in a room. And I had, when I was all alone in here, the door was locked. Something opened the studio door, and you could see, because it's one of those, the knob on it is kind of one of those long handles that you pull downwards instead of just turning a knob.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that. I heard it, and I looked over, and it's going down and opening, and there's nobody in there with me. But the room where the studio is has a lot of the family members have been having experiences in here. My oldest son, who's still staying at home with us right now, he's got his family, and his baby is a year and a half old. And he heard the baby down here, but he had just left the baby upstairs, and that's 2 floors above. Yeah, this whole room right here, ironically enough, my room is above this room, so the knocking, whatever the spirit is, could be centralized in this area near my studio here. I often get EVPs when I'm recording, because I record audiobooks and voiceover work and stuff like that. I often have to edit in room tone over EVPs when I'm recording.
Yeah,
It's
there's
gotten,
those in the basement.
yeah.
Okay, and then is it over? Do you know the history of what the basement's built on?
Uh, no, because this area is pretty well protected. We live in a private community, and it's got a gated entrance. So, everything is really controlled here. They've left everything. I mean, you can go back in the stream behind our house and you'll find old arrowheads and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's definitely been some activity here between probably my people and some of the settlers at some point in time. So there's probably some restless spirits around here, because we have found arrowheads in the creek in the stream. So
Yeah, that's typical in Texas, and oh yeah, it's a lot of Native American stuff. Those two.
Yep.
And I've seen some amazing things that came from.
Matter of fact, last night, oh my goodness, I almost forgot about that. We were coming home from the store, and we saw this, and he was with me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. If it was a dog shape, it was a very large one. It didn't look like a deer either, but it was a very large animal, because it was on 4 legs type shape, but it looked like it was made completely a shadow. And each of us didn't know if the other one had seen it when he saw it, but it went across near where our driveway was really, really fast, like faster than I've seen anything go. It didn't look like a deer. It seemed too big to be a dog. But the thing is, the way the headlights were, we should have actually seen like, a normal form, but it looked like it was just shadow. I don't know if it was maybe a big black dog, but it was weird. And we were uncomfortable when we got out of the car. We went in very quickly, because we both seen it. And then we kind of both said, what was that, almost at the same time. And then he was just relieved that I saw it too, because he thought he was maybe losing his mind when he saw it, because it looked that unusual.
I call it a puka in Ireland.
A puka?
A puka, Pooca or Pooka, but Ca.
Have you seen one?
No, I just read a lot about it, and they have them in England too. But in Ireland, they'll take the form of dogs, and donkeys or horses. But dogs are very, very common. You'll be walking down the road, and next thing you know, there's a big black dog walking right alongside.
I've heard of those before. Yeah.
They're not unfriendly. It's not threatening, But if you go to pet it, your hand's going to pass right through it. That's your first
Wow.
clue.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
not right.
Scruffy, you've actually had another experience with a shadow dog before. Do you remember that?
You're talking about one way
Way
back.
back, yeah.
Oh.
That thing scared you.
No, actually, I can recall a couple, both bit fadey, but I think I know which one you're referring to. So without confirmation, I'm just gonna jump to an event.
Okay.
So way back when I was young, I remember this large hallway. Everyone in our family had nice rooms. It was a nice decorated hallway, a house, of course, a beautiful house. But I remember hearing things inside of this long hallway. I went to go look, and this kind of still haunts my memories. And I don't know where I remember hearing this information, which I'll get to after the story in a second. But I remember looking down this hallway and seeing this black dog. It looked like it was like a, how to put it, kind of like a pit bull almost, resembling. And one of its paws, I believe, if I can remember correctly, from my angle, was its right paw was twisted backwards. I can't remember all the details, but I can definitely remember that it was very disfigured and frightening. And I was incredibly scared, and it darted right at me, running all fours down the hallway at me. And I remember just falling to my knees and putting my hands over my head, cradling myself in an attempt to protect myself against what was probably going to maul me to death. At least what I thought. And surely enough, there was nothing there right after the episode.
Yeah. Yep. There was a lot of activity during that time, though. It wasn't the only thing that was actually close to the same time when you got kicked in the face. You wanna?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting story. Kicked in the face.
Well, you know what I'm talking about.
Never really had that
Explain
actually.
that.
Nothing like that happened before. Again, when I was young, we were cleaning my sister's bedroom. We were cleaning around, getting furniture and things cleaned up, and my sisters called me in because the bed, it's too, like, they want to lift the bed, but they're a little too big for it, and I'm very small and skinny, so they figure let's get this one to be kicked in the face. Well, they didn't know that at the moment, but let's go get him to help us clean. So surely enough, I accept, and I remember going underneath of the bed, clearing stuff out, and I remember grabbing something that was, it was like kind of like a liquidy almost. I'm losing memory of the exact feel that I had kept so much described to
Said kind of
myself.
squishy.
Yeah, it was kind of squishy, like almost like a ball of mercury or something, I guess I would say. But so I guess, yeah, now I'm remembering correctly. The moment I grabbed that, something swung and just kicked me in the face. And I was frightened. I run out from underneath the bed and tell them there's something under there. And they lift it up and there's nothing underneath it there. I had already cleared out whatever was there. There was just a bag, which I had moved by and then touched whatever was there. And at first I think I was lying, but sure enough, I had blood from my nose and from a slightly torn lip, so something definitely hit me really hard.
Yeah, you had. I remember that because I was wondering what happened to you, and then they explained it, and of course, that was just another thing that was going on at the time. That was during a time of extreme paranormal activity. We always go through periods where it's like nothing, and then we'll go through periods where there's a whole lot happening at once. And it's actually, this was kind of led up to a theory that I had because there were other things that happened during these times that have led me to the idea that some paranormal activity is related to extraterrestrial visitations.
Is this
because
the same house, Nita?
Huh?
Same house?
No, it's a different house.
Okay.
That's another thing is circumstances will often lead when activity gets really, really strong. circumstances start to lead to where we have to move for some reason. And actually, we're getting ready to move again, and paranormal activity is starting to kick up again. It's strange, but it's like the universe tries to protect me that way.
Okay.
We'll go whenever we move for a period of about 3 months where nothing will happen, and then gradually things will start to happen again. So it's almost like whatever follows us has to take, it takes a while to catch up or find us, which is strange. But
Yeah, because you shouldn't have to feel like you're running from anything.
you know, it's not intentional, it's circumstances, and that's the
Uh,
weird thing. It's like something else is setting into motion that we need to, you know, not be there anymore. Go ahead, Scruffy.
it's defining us.
Yeah, I think I can put a little bit more detail into that. What I think is she's really trying to say, which I understand fully, is we do tend to have things over a course of time when we tend to move things in activity. Paranormal activity is at a low, but over time these things tend to happen, build up, whether it be knockings, random knocking, or door slamming, or actually being pushed, or
Doorknobs
something
turning by
breaking, doorknobs
themselves.
turning, something breaking like glasses. But it seems like throughout the last several houses that I can recall through just sheer memory, we didn't move because we ran, but morely the circumstances involving the household made us move. Like with one of our houses, we actually had scorpions inside of
Oh
it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and also mice. That house ended up having a broken heater, and after cold came, we had to move, and that's when things were kicking up.
Yeah, it's like circumstances keep falling into place whenever paranormal activity starts getting really strong. So it's almost like there's a guiding hand saying, you need to go now.
Hmm. Well, I would say I wonder what it is. If you can define as much as you could define
Well, the
anything,
problem is, and it's like, you remember our guest, Sherry, when she
that
was on.
with some
Um,
Ouija board,
it's kind of like, you know, with you can't do anything about it to some extent, because there are some things that are happening that as much as you shield, you can't stop them. You just can't. You are powerless against them. Case in point, what my son was talking about during the time that he was talking about, in that same period of time, in that same room that he got kicked in the face in. Um, my daughters shared that bedroom, and one of them was sitting and doing her homework, and her other sister was sleeping on the bed. And she looked over at her and she saw, almost like, remember the Predator movies, how you could barely see the outline of this thing, but you could
yeah,
tell it was there because it was like a cloaking thing.
yeah.
She saw something over her sister, and as it moved, she could see the air shift and stuff.
Whoa.
And when the thing realized that she was staring at it, it pulled back and looked at her like it was shocked that she could see it. And then she was frozen. She couldn't move. She could not move.
Like
And
you had been frozen by something.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then somebody came into their room. I don't remember who it was. And she was, when they opened the door, she was able to move again, but she couldn't see it. And then it went out the door.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that this thing that she saw, I found an image once of a reptilian, and it looked similar, but it had like large eyes, like a gray. But they've seen other things too. That's the thing, is that's not the only thing that they've seen before. So we have the paranormal activity, but we also have these other beings that they see. And so I think that there is a connection between that. I think there are possibly things that have the ability to hide themselves from people, but also mess with them. And I'm not sure why they mess with people. I think they do it perhaps because, like, a reptilian entity, I would imagine, feeds off of fear, off of negative energy. And so I think that is probably why they would try to do things to unnerve people.
Yeah. It's called
Years,
loosh.
yeah. So I started to teach them to personal shields, but I also started to teach them to not give it fear. No matter how much you wanted to be afraid of it, to try to not only not give it fear, but to actually address it and say, you're not welcome here. I send you away with love, but you're not welcome here. And get rid of them.
Another,
And actually things have decreased a lot on that wavelength since. But it certainly helps. It certainly helps.
ignoring them might help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do that a lot. I do that a lot. I'm actually, and I should be more. I should be more used to this by now. But even talking about it sometimes, really just, I feel really agitated right now,
Yeah.
and I can't describe it. I can't explain it, but I'm literally somewhat shaky.
Well, let me not add to that. I don't want to be questioning you about that sort of stuff if it puts you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing I've noticed is whenever we move, there's usually UFO sightings also. Um, it's like I don't know. I can't fathom to guess. I don't know.
Well, it's just a
But
pattern that you see. You know,
yeah,
that's all you
yeah,
can really say.
yeah,
Yeah, seen a UFO outside right where I am here. Been 2006, 10 years ago.
yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what it was. It was elating. I loved it. I screamed at it to stop, finally, so I could look at it, and it
Well,
actually slowed down for a second.
the first one I ever saw actually did just kind of sit there and let us watch it for a long time. And that was the one, the second show that I did where my mom joined us
Yeah,
and we were talking about that UFO sighting and it, I went and got her and then my brother eventually came in, although I seriously don't remember him being there, but he remembers it. So, um, but that first sighting, it just kind of hung around for a while, while we were watching it. And then it just zipped off, in that ping pong back and forth pattern and then just was gone. But the second one, which my husband and three of my children were there, but they were all very young at the time, um, was at a drive-in. And it was one of the most dramatic UFO sightings I've ever had because it literally came within 15 feet of our van, um, went in between, us, and thankfully there was not another car directly next to us, or probably would have hit it or gone through it. But it was a perfect gold metallic sphere, was very bright. It like had light emanating from it, but there were no light sources on it.
yeah,
It
right.
just seemed to kind of glow,
They
I guess.
are light. They don't need lights because they are light.
Probably. It looked fluid almost. And it's amazing how much we actually picked up as it went by because it went by pretty fast. But it's like almost the second it started going, we could see the glow coming up and we turned our heads just at that moment and saw it go by. And then it shot up at an angle into the sky and was just boom. I mean, it was seconds and it was gone.
I'm sure there were other witnesses too.
Well, we didn't stop and talk to anybody about it. We weren't even sure what had happened. And we were just kind of in it on the way home. So
Oh,
I don't know of any other reportings of it, which
you
makes
said,
me wonder if other people saw it or if it was meant just for us to see. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
But I will tell you, it was near a military base. Yeah. So, and I know that there's a lot of connection between military bases and UFOs. But that thing sure seemed like it was just trying to, get our attention. So I don't know. But that was our second sighting. And that was actually, I mean, that's the closest I've ever been to, you know,
Yeah, there's.
a vehicle of that kind.
I thought you were like in a drive-in movie theater, like you were.
That's where we were, yeah.
Oh, but
It was I believe it was the first Jurassic Park.
okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it was crazy. And it was right at the end of the film. Right at the end of the film. I mean, just before we were getting ready to leave. So we were just kind of sat there dumbstruck and thinking, what was that? And actually, my husband and I turned to each other, and that's exactly what we said, with a little bit of bleepage in between there, because it was pretty shocking. And to this day, my husband's like super skeptic on almost everything. He's got an explanation for everything. Um,
Well, it doesn't
and I
hurt terribly to be that way, because that way you do,
No, because I mean, it's
right?
good to make sure that you've covered all your bases.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly, before you decide on something. So to this day, he's just like, the only thing he can say is, I can't tell you what it was. It might have been military, but I don't think so, but I just don't know. And that's all he can say is, I don't know.
Well, that's fair enough, and that
Yeah.
we ought to all be brave enough to be able to say that.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know
Yep.
what it is, I'll tell you. I don't know what it is. I'm not. I don't see myself as somebody who's got to have the answer for everything. My goodness, somebody like that's a pretty sick person. In my book.
Well, I mean, there's a kind of need for the head of the household, the man, to feel like, they want to reassure people that everything's fine, even when they're not exactly sure that it is fine.
Well, yeah, depending upon the state of mind of,
Circumstances.
yeah, the children and the spouse, and and typical cultural mores as they get pulled in. But if everybody's pretty cool and sees things clearly, then there's not so much that head of the household feeling that needs to be brought to bear, as it were. On a, do I make any sense there?
Yeah, you make sense.
That's good.
But yeah. So, uh, that's our weekly weirdness. I can't believe we took almost a whole half hour just with our weekly weirdness.
Well, that's
But we did kind of go into some past stuff too. So,
that's definitely enough weirdness.
though, there's so much more. There's so much more. It's just it's too much sometimes. Um, I've been trying for, oh goodness, years, really, to try to write everything that's happened down. I have a friend who is a independent filmmaker who actually wants to make a movie about my experiences in my life, but I'm horrible at writing. I don't have the patience for it. Um, I have the patience to talk about things, but when it comes to writing them out, it's not me. Some people are born to write, others aren't.
Can I suggest something?
Yeah, sure.
When you're writing, are you writing out in cursive, longhand, into a diary?
I prefer to write instead of type, but I have typed too.
Because that's what I was going to say. Because I have a hard time writing one-handed. It's easy for me, unless I really know my points. It's easy for me to lose my points of thought while I'm sitting there trying to put it down on the paper
Mm-hmm.
longhand.
Yeah.
However, on a keyboard where I'm using both hands and they're both sides, therefore both sides of the brain, I'm a demon. I can get everything. It's amazing. So what I would hand to you is try typing and then see what you think before you give the whole thing up.
I've done it. The problem that I have is I always forget things because, remember, I said earlier how I try to be very concise and to the point. So I initially always kind of just, I like to get things summarized into just the simplest possible little thing, but then I forget things, and I have to go back and mention details that I've forgotten that I should have put in, but I didn't put in, and then I've got to. That's why.
Know the feeling well.
Yeah, I have to go back and edit, and and then I've got to re-put it back together, and I'm a linear thinker, so it's like I go from one thought to another, and sometimes I go way off before I come back, to where I was, as I did with this. I kind of went from one experience right into another one because to me, they were connected. Even though they were years apart, there was still a connection between those experiences. So I was bringing that connection through. When I do that in writing, it takes out my timeline and messes it up completely.
Yeah, but that may have more effect in this than you realize. And
Yeah.
so don't hammer on it too hard till you find that out.
I
Be-
think I'm too critical of myself
oh
sometimes.
yeah, we all can be. But
Yeah.
it's not what's the important things in life are the intense things, and they do happen at different times, and they don't follow a set pattern. But it's
Yep.
the intense things that we remember. So if you connect those, people will get it. It'll make sense to them in a way that it's followable in a successful manner. Watch.
I certainly hope so, because it feels like I'm just going to end up with a book that just rambles all over the place.
Well, some people like that too. It's
I
just
suppose. At
getting
least it's
published to
real.
do it for you.
At least it's real. It's what's coming out. So, yeah.
It's winning the hearts and minds of the publishers. That's the problem.
When it comes to poetry, I'm fine with that.
Huh?
I'm okay with that. I can actually, I can pop one of those out when I'm in the right mood,
Uh-huh.
no time whatsoever. But when I'm working with memories, it's different because I want everything to be exactly as it's supposed to be, and I don't have the patience to write out the details.
You couldn't put the memories in the poetry.
Yeah. If I could just beam the images directly from my brain onto paper, that would be awesome.
It would be.
That would be perfect.
I'd like.
I'll bet you there'll be a technology for that within the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And then I'll have my book written.
I'd be willing to bet in probably 5 or 7 years.
Yeah, I know things are going pretty fast actually. Maybe Vicky will do it.
Maybe. Like she'll read your mind and super write you onto paper.
Well,
I don't even know. I don't even understand. Like, he sat there and he explained that out, Patrick, right? But
yeah.
I don't understand half of what he did, even though he's explained it out. I would never be able to do what he did.
If I watched him, I might follow it.
Yeah.
Hearing it, nah. But then watching it, I get a
Yeah.
better apprehension of it, and then maybe I could learn how to program, and then I'd be on top of the whole mess till
Yeah.
it starts acting like it's got a ghost in it, and then I don't know what's going on.
Goes to the machine.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there's something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going on. What it did occur to me was that somebody had seen that and then piggybacked on it just for fun and did that just to play with y'all's heads.
I don't see how they could have done it. And I mean, considering that he programmed it himself.
Well,
Yeah, just took it over. Just kind of hacked it and started working it themselves.
I
know.
would agree with that, which I'm sure actually that's a possibility, but first of all, it has absolutely no minutes, no service, and zero network. So everything that connects to the outside world is shut off, even the simple things like Bluetooth or tethers. That's why it always says I need to find a network connection. But the chances of a hacker, I mean, they do have several ways of getting in, but I mean, in order to get into something that doesn't have any tethers to a network, Bluetooth, or connections to data or 4Gs or 3Gs, any connections like that would be a bit hard. Now, it is doable, and how I see that being possible could be through bouncing signals from satellite.
Who would take the time to do that? Just
I know, but that's not my point. That
yeah,
could
I
be,
know.
That's just an example. Or so getting into your system at times that you are on the internet. But that there's another problem with even that concept is this intelligence is secluded. So even if it does have a network connection, it's not it can operate better, but it won't actually access any real internet for anything. Now there's default things like Skeevy, Iris, Siri, all these other things that connects to the internet for questions, and that's why when there isn't something from the internet, they get confused. So, but I see your point, but I don't see like someone bouncing a signal off a satellite or even taking the time to use a hacker jack next to a vehicle.
Yeah, because
I
we
mean-
we were in a parking lot at the time waiting.
Ah. Well, they're not going to show us everything they have. The things that
Oh, I know. Yeah.
things that we know are there are maybe, just a small fraction of what they actually have and can do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, I know. There's a lot of things, technologies that we'll maybe find out about in another 10, 15 years. I mean, you think about how long it took for some technologies to be revealed. They're very slow with that.
Yeah, they are. I believe the government has quite a bit of technologies they keep for the later generations in to reveal, like curved TVs or new batteries that are like 50 times smaller, cost 1 penny, and are much more energy efficient. Now, one thing I'm just gonna say real quick is I kind of just got creeped out because when you guys were talking about that, the phone vibrated, and that creeped me out. I checked it, and it was just a missed alarm for a really old medication I had to take
That's
that I never
funny.
shut off.
That is so funny,
So,
though.
that kind of freaked me out for a second.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, we were still in the middle of that other thing. Okay. 18 signs that, the world's getting better. It says the US tax rates are lower than nearly 3/4 of the other countries in the world. The average single American is paying an average of about 25% of their paycheck for income tax and social safety taxes, which is well below the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development average of just under 36%. The US actually ranks 25th among the 34 developed nations. So I guess yay us, although I think 25% is extremely high, and I think it's crazy that people work so hard and a quarter of what they have, in some cases more than a third, gets taken by your governments. It's archaic, honestly, and it's something that it's beyond what needs to be, and the tax shelters they have for the wealthy are ridiculous. So I still think we have a long way to go as far as tax development and having them the way that it works for everybody.
We got a long way to go before we're
Mhm.
civilized. At this rate.
Yep. Number 14, scientists may have found a way to slow down aging. I've heard about this. And I think there's actually a couple of different things that they're looking at right now. Um, this one is about a team of researchers having identified a gene that could be used to stave off senescence, the decline in the body's ability to fight disease that comes with aging,
Sound.
and found a way to remotely activate the gene.
What is the gene called? What are they governing?
It says senescence.
Okay.
S
Yeah, that.
E N E
Yeah,
S
often
C E N C.
I know the word.
Okay.
It's often pronounced senescence,
Okay.
and it comes from the same as the root of senate, or
Oh, really?
SCN for old. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. And but other than that, that's just a term. I'm wondering if
They didn't label the gene. They should have labeled the gene on this,
yeah, that'd be nice.
what it was. I know there was actually a drug that they were using on mice to treat some sort of disease that they actually found was slowing down aging on the mice too. And I'm trying to remember what it was treated for. And I'm almost thinking it was like liver disease or something. It started with an R, and I'll have to find that for another show, because it's been said that it not only is like slows down aging, but they're actually saying that it's rejuvenating, as in, kind of like a fountain of youth type thing, restores old cells.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting.
And it may
Um,
indeed be senescence too, because I don't know all pronunciations. They may
yeah, it's
be
true.
variants. But I think I've read, I'll see a word and I'll want to read it, and so I'll say senescence, but it could be senescence. If we look it up in the online
Oh, I was just
dictionary,
going on the fly. You're probably right.
get an online dictionary.
Because I have not seen that word before. So, yeah, that was just off the top of my head.
Yeah, it means old.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I'm getting there slowly but
I'll
surely.
be 65 in July.
You got a few years on me.
Yeah, I do. I got a few years on a lot of people around here. Yeah.
So, number 13, renewables now produce 22% of the world's electricity. This is really encouraging. That number puts renewable electricity generation from wind, solar, and hydro on par with that of natural gas. That is excellent, excellent news. And there is actually There's actually some companies out there that you can go through now, um, and they will actually buy wind power electricity through your local electric company for you. They will convert it. They will let your electric company know that you want the wind power, and I'm not sure how it works, but there's a website for it, so that you can actually opt into buying wind power through your regular electric company anywhere you are. And I've got to find that. Because, I mean, how amazing is that to actually have the choice to switch to wind power instead of, natural gas or nuclear power? That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
And I know one of those companies was following me on Twitter, and I cannot find it now.
See, then there's
Whenever you want to find something, it's never, ever there.
no
Look at my followers
for
and see
sure.
about that. All right, so on to number 12. The ozone layer is making a recovery. I did not know this. A new assessment by 300 scientists indicate that the ozone layer is well on track to recovery in the next few decades. The ozone layer is expected to recover to 1980 benchmark levels, the time before the significant depletion, before the middle of the century in mid-latitudes and the Arctic, and somewhat later in the Antarctic. So that's awesome. That's really good to know, because we need the ozone, or we will just all burn up and die. So that would really suck. Well, come on. I mean, honestly, we need our ozone. There's no two ways about it. And people that are still using aerosols need to knock it off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that simple. You want to live, or you want to put on hairspray that sprays out like that? It's silly to still be using products that are hurting your planet. It's
Not doing
selfish.
you any good either. When you put them on, the body that puts them on is getting pretty
Mm-hmm.
poisoned by it.
Yep.
Yeah. And it smells
Okay.
terrible. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Pardon me.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Ah, there's the senescence. I see what you shared. Number 11, America isn't as hated as you think it is. So this is kind of an upward thing for America. But because, yeah, we kind of do get the impression that everybody hates us. I mean, that's kind of the general overall feel. I mean, it seems like it. But actually, 45% of people polled worldwide in 2013 had a positive view of America. For comparison, the country with the highest rating is Germany. Wow. With 55% positive. That's only 10% more. That's not bad.
Mm.
It's a little surprising, honestly. Number 10, we're living longer. I don't know how positive that is. Although most babies born in 1900 didn't live past age 50, life expectancy at birth now exceeds 83 years in Japan and is at least 81 years in 71 other countries, or in 81 other countries. 83 years and 81 years, there's not really a big difference there. So they're getting 2 more years than us in Japan. That's probably due to the herbal remedies and things, but that's really not getting them that much. Number 9, as we get older, we get happier. Researchers have found that when older people are shown pictures of faces and situations, they remember the positive ones more than the negative ones. Other studies have discovered that as people age, they choose to spend their time with people who make them happy, learn to let go of loss and disappointment over unachieved goals, and focus on the greater well-being. That's something. Number 8, the U.S. deficit has been cut by more than 50%. The thing about that is the deficit to me.
There's something not being told about that little baby there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
That there.
Oh, and where the money goes, and who's it owed to, you know? The world as a whole is in debt, but who's the world in debt to?
Yeah, after a while,
Rothschild, Rockefeller?
yeah, it becomes a non-event after a while.
Mm-hmm. Number 7 says since 1990, the number of people in developing countries living in extreme poverty has been cut in half. So the number has dropped from 43% to 21% between 1990 and 2010, a reduction of almost a billion people. That's really good. That's really, really good. That means that we're doing something right in all the efforts that we're making, all the things that we're doing with different organizations. It's making a difference. It's affecting change, and that's really, really good to know. Number 6, the Gulf of Mexico has reopened and the seafood is safe to eat again. I don't know that I believe this 100%.
I believe that either, and I'm right down here.
Yeah, the region was devastated
Be-
by 205 million gallon oil spill. But this year, scientists are giving the Gulf a 68 out of 100 in health. Those same scientists gave the Gulf's pre-spill a health of 71 out of 100. So basically, they're saying it's almost up to the same health level it was before the oil spill. I'm just not buying it.
They're leaving out all that core exit that went into it too.
Mm-hmm. They must be.
I ain't
They must
thinking
be.
about that. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't trust anything. At least crawfish are grown in ponds, so they're not
Yeah,
going in the Gulf.
we have crawfish in our stream.
Yeah, right. They're good.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're like mini lobsters.
Right, little lobsters.
Yep, that's basically what they taste like. New research shows that a functional cure for HIV may be possible. A 2012 study, and actually, I think this is somewhat older. I think they've officially announced a cure, haven't they? Just recently?
I don't remember. I can't tell you, Nita.
It seems like recently they had released something. I think there's a cure for just about everything that they say there's not a cure for, and usually in most cases it's natural.
If you can pay for it too,
Hmm.
in some cases.
Let's see. Number 4, nervous about mysterious food additives? Don't be. Oh, this has got to be some kind of what?
I'm sorry.
He can't help himself. Oh, ingredients you don't recognize on food labels are likely preservatives which keep food from turning rancid. Before the advent of food preservatives, listeria, botulism, and diarrhea were a lot more common. So don't be afraid of them at all. They're good for you. Sarcasm notated there.
The language that's actually used in the article,
Yeah,
it makes it sound like they're talking to a 6-year-old.
right?
Good heavens.
Oh my goodness. That is so funny. Yeah, I'm more of a freshitarian than, anything.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not a vegetarian because when you look at it, here's my thoughts on the matter as far as vegetarianism. It's just as bad as eating meat because we've found recently that plants not only communicate but feel pain.
They suffer.
They suffer, yes. So they're being abused. It's just the natural way of things. It's the cycle of life that things there's a food cycle, there's a food chain, and it's a natural way. It's how life exists. It's how things go in a
Hey,
never-ending cycle of living. So, plants get eaten, animals get eaten, humans probably get eaten. We're not at the top of the food chain, although we think we are. There are creatures that would eat us as well if they given the opportunity. It's just the way it works. That's nature.
it takes life to make life.
But when it comes to food, like I said, I'm a freshitarian. I prefer to have fresh food over canned food.
I agree.
Yep. Let's see. Number 3, worldwide gender inequality has gone down 20% since 1995. Well, that's certainly something that we've been working on for a while, and we still got a ways to go. Obviously, things aren't equal yet, but it's getting better. According to the UN's Human Development Reports, Gender Inequality Index, a comprehensive study of reproductive health, social empowerment, and labor market equality, there's been a 20% decline in observable gender equalities worldwide in the period between 1995 and 2011. Not bad. Let's see. And number 2, crime is on the decline. Crime, property crime, theft, burglary have been steadily dropping since 1993. The murder rate is the lowest since the 50s, quite a lot lower than it was in the 1970s and even the 1930s. What has gone up is the reporting of crime on television and other media. So, even though it seems like there's a lot going on, what they're saying is there was more going on before. It's just that people weren't aware of it because the media is covering it so much. And so it's in your face all the time right now. And is this 1? Yeah, this is number 1. Worldwide child mortality rates have halved since 1990. In 2012, half as many children died before reaching their 5th birthday as they did in 1990. This is according to a report released by UNICEF, the World Health Organization, the World Bank Group, why they're involved, I don't know, and the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs Population Division. So that's a good thing. Our kids are living longer. That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So there we have it. These are all good things that are signs that, the world's getting better. And that's something always to look at. Because if we focus on the negative, on the bad stuff, we're just going to draw more bad things to our reality. I think, we've talked about the law of attraction before, things like that. But it's really important to understand that when you're trying to make change in the world, it's a better idea to try to make things a reality that you want to see, positive things, than raising your fists up against something you don't want to see. You still need to say no to things, but you also need to be active in being proactive in creating new things that are going to create positive future changes in our world, like supporting clean energy, kindness initiatives, supporting food for the hungry, helping with development of homes for the homeless, things like that, to also produce your focus on things that are constructive rather than destructive. Because as important as it is to get rid of the bad things, it's also really important to create the positive things. And now, going back to the weirdness, there were a couple of interesting stories that have come up over the last week. One of them is about a power station in the last part of 2015 that its chimneys, I guess, were demolished through a controlled explosion. And as the smoke rose into the air, there's an image here, and I'm going to see if I can get this in the chat room, the link to it. It looks like a human being. There is a human silhouette made from the smoke that rose into the air from this demolition. It's absolutely crazy.
You got a link?
Yeah, I'm going to get a link if you can put that in the chat room, because I lost my chat room link. Let's see. And there, if you can share that for the listeners, can you see that? The image is on the preview there. But that is very curious. I mean, this is the kind of thing I could see back in the day, where people would say they saw God, like God was responsible for this destruction or something. When something happens like this and the smoke rises up and takes the form of a human being like that, oh, that's certainly something that would inspire a lot of, religious, implications that God was responsible for this, or something to that. Whatever entity or being that they believe in, has a hand in it. Because how do you get, that kind of a silhouette?
Bizarre.
That is, isn't it? You can see it now. Did you share it in the chat room?
Yes, I did.
And so, listeners, if you click on in the chat room, Patrick shared a link to this. It's very, very, very
Oh
interesting.
my goodness.
It's and then here's another one, and this is a very similar thing as well. There was a plane that these people were passengers on a plane. Let me get you the link real quick. The link real quick so you can share it so people can see this. But one of the passengers took a picture. 30-year-old Nick Donahue, who is a software support team manager from Ireland, was flying aboard an EasyJet airplane from Austria to Cork at 30,000 feet when he noticed a bizarre humanoid-like figure outside his window.
That's a gremlin on the wing.
It was actually on the
Oh,
clouds.
oh, in the clouds. Okay.
Yeah. So he grabbed his camera and snapped the amazing photo, which you can see at the link. Patrick, did you get that link I just sent?
In now.
Okay. Yeah, so there's the picture of it. And it looks like, yeah, it does. It resembles a giant robot walking across the clouds. And it has a shadow. That's the thing about this photo, is there's actually a shadow to this being that he photographed there. Very, very curious.
No kidding.
Quote from the guy says, I was flying back from a work ski trip in Austria. I was only on the window seat with two colleagues beside me. They were talking like crazy, and I was gazing at the window, as you do. And I could see this figure in the distance in front of us. And then as we flew closer, this shape appeared. I asked the ladies beside me to look at it, too, in case I was seeing things. And they, too, were amazed. Very, very curious. And that takes us to the end of the show. Thank you to all of our listeners tonight. Thank you to Patrick for being with us and Scruffy for joining us again tonight. You can find Anomalous Realities on Facebook at facebook.com/Anomalous Realities. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Nita Who. Good night, everyone.